Hello, and welcome again to the discussion that we are having today. We've had a fantastic afternoon at the ZNCC Annual Business Review 2024. So we have had some very interesting guests. Tinashe and Shumba here had interesting guests on the show. So I've joined in, and we have got a very important guest here, Mr. James Chimwanza, who is the president of Comesa Business Council. And I'll welcome to the show, Mr. Chimwanza.
Thank you.
And I'll give him an opportunity to just introduce himself and what the Comesa Business Council does, and vis-a-vis the event that we had today.
My name is James Chimwanza. As introduced, I'm the president of Comesa Business Council. And Comesa Business Council is a mother body of private sector confederations of chambers of commerce of the 21 countries of Comesa.
Okay.
And we are therefore promoting private sector activities in order to grow the economy. We also advocate for removing of tariffs, promoting freedom of movement of people within the Comesa countries, promote aggregation of what we produce through upholding standards for quality, so that we should not fail to be able to meet demand of products that are needed in Europe or in the East or anywhere else because of volume. Because with standards, once a standard protocol is given in Europe of what they want, be it for rice or any mineral product, then we have the capacity to be able to produce from more than one country and meet the demand that is required outside.
It's interesting that you are mentioning the issue of one of the objectives around free movement of people, and you seems to be, having issues achieving that as Africans, where if you are a Zimbabwean or you want to go into some other African country, you need to have a visa in some countries. And maybe you can speak to that, and also related to that, the issue of the tariffs, that maybe before we go out to trade with other regions, maybe going to Europe, to the Americas, maybe we should look at Africa as one big market for us. And probably one of the problems that we then see when you try to go outside your jurisdiction or your country is you are met with tariffs or barriers of sorts that may not be tariffs. So your organizations and what you are, the membership that you represent, would you say we are closer to having this free movement of people, and also having all, or if not most, if not all of the barriers, tariff or non-tariff, be removed in terms of the trading that we do as African countries, starting from the commerce, obviously, which is where the organization is based?
Well, the structure of Comesa, being the mother body of all the countries in the regional economic bloc, and that Comesa Business Council is the private sector wing of it.
Okay.
I think it is helping in a sense that when we brought up this issue of freedom of movement and removal of tariffs, there is a business sense behind it.
Okay.
Because if, say, Malawi produces raw material and then sells it to Zambia, and there's duty on it, and Zambia produces it to semi-finished, and they send it to Zimbabwe to finish it, and then they pay also duty, the final product in Zimbabwe cannot compete with a final product produced in EU where there are no tariffs on raw materials. So, and when this is reasoned at the Comesa Secretariat level, at the Ministerial Council, and a paper is drafted, when heads of state meet and that paper is brought to them, once they ratify, it means that one has passed the post because all the rest of the governments in the 21 countries, all they have to do is ratify, operationalize what has been agreed. So we are able to engage with technocrats at the regional economic level who draw papers, and then those declarations which we give them, once the heads of state approve, then that one has gone past. So we are making quite considerable progress.
Okay.
Even on free movement of people now, you can see countries have started waiving visas or passports as a result of that, because they're just operationalizing what has already been sanctioned at summit level.
So I'm happy to hear you speak to the progress that you are seeing and helping to move along. But this is one of my pet peeves when I think about economics in Zimbabwe and across Africa. So if you think about our borders today, they were written, by old white men at a conference in 1884 in Berlin. And those borders are the borders that we have today. And, we've got different currencies, we've got different tariff and tax regimes, we've got different immigration regimes. And, I need a visa to go to Nigeria, for example. But a Spaniard doesn't need a visa to go to Austria or Germany or anywhere, in the EU. And it seems to me that, we've got all these organizations with the right idea, with the right vision, whether it's COMESA or SADC or the African Union, but we're still so far behind the EU, So, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, or the question that the root of my question is, what do you think is holding back, progress? Is it lack of political will from the actual politicians? Are there some serious bureaucratic challenges? Because I don't understand it.
Okay, the problem is historical, and maybe we are shooting at the wrong end. Because historical being that when there was the partition of Africa, it was not just done and they drew lines there. There were strategies to ensure that those lines hold. And one of the things is, even where you find that a line is cutting clans, the people on this side, they were made to believe they were superior to the people on the other side. And so there was a divide among the people, divided by those lines. So what we need to be doing now is actually sensitizing the masses to tell them that we are one people. And culturally, we are one people. Yeah. But through time, we have acquired this sense of uniqueness and not being one people. We all historically came mostly from the Congo Belt. And some came here and others went into Mozambique. We are one people. And if you go to one border, you find that there are people on the other side. And the clan, people are divided. But when it comes to a football match between that country and this will be fighting. When they are closer in blood than the players who are playing on the two sides. So actually, the press ought to be running campaigns to sensitize the people that this false pride that we are wearing, forgetting the richness of being one big family, we need to graduate from that. So we are suffering from the seed that was planted there, and we need to graduate from it. It's not political, but we have been poisoned, and we need to graduate out of it.
So can you please just comment on the relationship between the heads of state and the business side? So the COMESA Business Council is the business side of COMESA. And whether you act as an advisor on economic issues, or you are a lobby group, or what is the relationship like? And when you are making contributions or proposal or advice, do you feel that maybe 8 out of 10 times your proposals are taken or are considered, or maybe you just feel that maybe the political will to consider views from business is just not there, like in general?
Yeah, business is about persuasions.
Okay.
And you look for the most effective way to persuade. And we can fight or we can engage.
Okay.
And there's a platform that has been created over the years. It is called public-private dialogue.
Okay.
And under public-private dialogue, if we are selective of the common areas, of the positive areas of the two sides as a point of engaging, and then pulling, then we go that route, we can begin to graduate on the thorny issues and make progress. So it's a skill, it's an art of moving a step at a time.
Okay.
But now it's getting faster, and the more open people are of both sides. A case in point is the dialogue that we had today. You know, when you open up and there's ventilation, there's now capacity to see reason by both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So what is happening will improve things.
Okay.
Situation will not be the same, but what is it? There was public-private dialogue. And in COMESA, we are promoting business council, and also all the national focal points in the COMESA countries. We encourage public-private dialogue.
Okay.
That is a more effective way of shifting from one negative area to the positive side.
So another issue that comes to mind when you're looking at the relationship between government and private sector in Zimbabwe is the issue around trust. So there's a certain level of mistrust between government and a business. You can't really say this is the source of the mistrust, but you can sort of feel it. So you can have an event or congregation like the one that we have, people just speak, but in a way you can sort of see some finger pointing taking place. In your experience, maybe when you're looking at the other African countries, do you also see that in other countries? And what could be, what needs to be done to try and bridge that trust gap that might be there between business and government? Because at the end of the day, the outcomes that we desire is actually one, because we want the country to prosper. If the economy is doing well, as a private player, as an investor, my profits good. Also, government is able to provide services, and also the welfare of its people is good. So in terms of the outcomes that we desire, they are pretty much the same level, but there's this mistrust. Is it something that you see pervasive across the other markets? And if what needs to be done to try and bridge that trust gap?
Well, trust comes with openness.
Okay.
That you are not hiding something.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that the press has helped in the past is to unearth what is hidden. And once it is unearthed and it's based on truth, that helps in a way to build trust, because you cannot continue to lie on an issue which has been exposed. So the press has got a very, very key role to repair needs persistent and consistent engagement or in clearing. If we just sweep this place today and for 5 days we don't sweep, it will be littered with leaves.
True.
So trust is a function of many players, the masses, but one of the key areas is the press, because once they get a point and they bring it in the open, then there's that those questions are risen. Now the next thing is courage. You having opened it up, engage. Say, this is what we've heard. What are you doing? And it's the lady who was on the panel there said, if we can smoothen the edges when we engage, we can begin to build trust. And also, trust is not built on points of difference. It's built on the points of commonality. If you are looking at a half-empty cup of glass of water or a half full, it makes a lot of difference.
True.
So that positivity is what will build trust. And the trust is not lost by one side. And the politician also thinks he has lost trust of some citizens. They think people are prisoners of, if there are 10 parties, they are prisoners of one of those.
Okay.
But the citizen is independent. He is at the mercy of how they impress him. So that again, the press should always, there's no permanent enemy to the politicians, so they must do everything possible to win, to win us. So once they work towards winning the confidence of the people, and we also should remain independent. You don't have to be a diehard of one regime, but you should look at what they are offering. And when you see that capacity to shift, then they'll be even more careful, and they will want to project the best.
And so from where you're sitting, what's your outlook? When do in your imagination, looking forward, when do you think? Do you think one day we'll wake up with a borderless Africa? For the most part, where you don't need
I believe so.
a visa to go to any country on the continent, as long as you're an African, and there are no duties and tariffs within our borders, and we have similar standards, maybe even one currency. Do you see that happening in our lifetimes?
Well, if we add in our lifetime, we might miss projecting into the future.
Okay.
Our colleagues in the US, for example, they have programs to exploit certain mineral deposits 500 years from today. They are planning for 500 years from today.
So it's certainly outside their lifetime.
Yeah, it's way outside their lifetime. For the love of motherland, they recognize what can be touched in this lifetime and what has got to be kept for there. And what they look forward to is they are honored. So you find that in certain circles, they say, for the founding fathers, the founding fathers didn't deplete everything in the generation. So when we think beyond now, beyond these generations, then you begin to think without desperation. Yeah, you don't project that you should be able to see the end of everything in your life. No. So I am a total believer that after all, if you look back, the most civilized continent in the era of the start of the genealogy of Christ during Abraham was Egypt. And Egypt was not an Arab civilization, it was an African civilization. Those are the people who started writing and even sciences to be able to construct those pyramids. It was an African civilization. And people moved freely. Why we are all here, having gone north and south, and having started from Timbuktu to here, it was one country. And it can happen again. I do believe so.
That's a very optimistic take.
It is.
No,
but in our lifetimes,
lifetime is greedy. But when you think of the future, the founding fathers who even fought for the independence of our countries, they were not fighting to see it in their time. And some of them did not live to see it.
For sure.
Yeah, but those, we still revere them up to now. That's the kind of citizenry that we need to embrace.
So maybe one last question from me. So when you're looking at the issue of free borders and also, removal of tariffs, is the differences in the economic structures of African countries. So maybe one would make a case that if you just open the borders, you're most likely to see certain countries being emptied. Everyone is moving away from their country into countries where the economic fortunes or prospects are much better. probably the reason why the EU, Euro Union works is because there's some general minimum levels of economic development which pretty much every country has achieved. So the movement is sort of, managed. How would you respond to that? That maybe we need to, African countries need to achieve a certain basic minimum level of maybe service delivery, economic status before we can then dream of free movement of people and removal of tariffs. Otherwise, maybe someone who's producing more will just dump their product into another country, which is not producing as much. So it's not really benefiting from the removal of tariffs, and also people just move into this other country where the prospects of getting jobs, the quality and standard of life is much better. So that won't then create a balance in the whole free movement and removal of tariffs. How would you respond to that view?
I think we need to look at from in the digital space. It's binary. You'll have to look at both sides.
Okay.
So these considerations are the negatives. Then there are the positive sides, because some people will be seeing, will be able to aggregate what to produce and get markets which we wouldn't otherwise get. So you begin to have synergies between countries. People of this side and this side pulling together to be able to access a pie which they would not have otherwise accessed. The other thing you will be able to see is we think in two minds, but look at when one decides, has seen somebody and touches his heart and wants to marry. He doesn't think of these negatives. He thinks they don't struggle to.
That's not necessarily a good thing.
So you find that once we are
everyone is looking at the happily ever after.
Once we are looking at this, our people are intermarrying.
Yes.
Not just within Africa, but some going even to Europe, where visas are very difficult. The people are able to integrate. So there are some positive sides which we don't give consideration. We are always risk-minded. So we want to address risk. But there are more opportunities than risks. And that will set in when that happens.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Chimwanza. We truly appreciate taking your time to
sit with us
and have this chat. We are certainly, I think even my friend Rufaro here is convinced that this free movement of people and total removal of tariffs will happen, even if it's not in our lifetime.
Most likely it will be in our time.
No, thank you so much to our viewers, and have a pleasant day.
Cheers. No, thank you so much for doing this.
Let's hear for